whatever, man. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Level Up Cleveland. This week we have with us Mr. Dougie Manross. That's right.
What's up?
The guitar extraordinaire, and you really are. You're one of the guitar players locally that kicks ass, dude. And thanks for coming down.
Yeah, for sure.
You're right now. You're a part of the band Bronx Country.
Yes.
It's not just all country though.
No.
It's got. There's a lot of things going on with this band. You know, I think a lot of people could be misled into that, thinking that it's like an all country band,
right.
But it's a cover band. I mean, is what it really is, and you play a lot of popular stuff.
Yeah. Yep. I always tell people we're country music for people that like rock music. So, if you're like somebody that's completely like, oh, I hate country music, I always say you'll probably like us though.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, you'll play like Hey Jealousy and stuff like that. It's not country music. These are popular tunes, really successful songs and big songs that everybody should know. But you guys do very well. You guys very talented band.
Yeah.
And you know, like you have a long history of doing all kinds of cool stuff that a lot of people I think would think is really cool of some of the stuff you've been involved in.
Right, yeah.
I want to go back a little bit though. I want to go back to the beginning. I mean, everybody's got their story, their guitar story, how they learned guitar, blah, 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 blah. Somehow I get the sense with you, it's one of them that you just buckled down one time and just learned how to play and you became you.
Pretty much.
Yeah, is that what happened?
So when I was, I had to be like 9. I think Guitar Hero was like the big thing.
Oh, yeah.
So my parents got me Guitar Hero, and I was terrible at it. And I'm like, you know what? I want to play real guitar. And my dad played. He grew up with a bunch of guitar players and stuff like that, which we'll probably get to. And he gave me his old guitars. He's like, this is different from Guitar Hero. Like, this isn't, you got to like practice and like sit down. I'm like, okay, I'm in. Like, and I just got a guitar teacher and I sat down and I just practiced. That's all I did for years.
You became obsessed, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
So do you think that you pick up Guitar Hero first of all? First of all, let me just ask you about that first.
Yeah.
Guitar Hero, right? Now when it came out, my daughters were really huge into it and stuff like that. It was a real big thing. And it also kind of coincided at a time where I think rock and roll to that generation was kind of dying out.
Yeah.
So the one thing I always give Guitar Hero credit for is reviving that whole rock scene, because my kids know so many songs from the 80s and 70s and stuff that they know well. And I'm like, how do you know that? Guitar Hero.
Yep.
So in some ways, I really believe Guitar Hero saved a generation from getting rid of the whole rock thing.
Yeah.
I mean, would you agree that that's probably true?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's what got me into rock music,
Well, really?
Yeah.
And then your dad's a guitar player.
A little bit. Yeah.
But he knows how to play guitar. Is that what it was?
He could play Simple Man. That's about
one song.
Right, yeah. He can play the chords of Simple Man.
Did that influence you at all, though? I mean, did the fact your dad could play, did that make you want to play a little bit, or did it have nothing to do with it?
I think the idea of him just having the gear, kind of, he had like a couple guitars, he had an amp, and that was just it was just around. So it was kind of easy to get into it, So that was...
So how old are you when you first start really playing the guitar? How old are you?
I was about 9 or 10.
So who the hell are you listening to, like, as an influence at 9 or 10?
My dad kind of showed me like some YouTube videos of like Eddie Van Halen, and then like I really got into like the heavier side of things first. So I was like really into like Black Sabbath, and like Randy Rhoads is like my guy when I was growing up. And yeah, my dad just showed me a bunch of videos, and he's like, hey, like, you know, if you practice, like, you could be one of these guys or whatever. So, yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Is that how you taught yourself? Was just mimicking other guitar players, or did you actually did you have a teacher? Did you do all that also?
Yeah. So, my dad, I think it was either my mom or my dad knew somebody that knew Bernie Hansel.
Oh, Bernie.
Yeah. Yep.
Taught you how to play. Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Bernie was your guitar teacher.
Yeah. So I took lessons from Bernie for about 2 years, and he definitely like pushed me into the more heavier side of things, like the Judas Priest, you know, like all the Black Sabbath, because that's all he
loves.
Yeah,
yeah, he loves it.
He loves
Maiden.
it. Right? Yeah, and yeah, he taught me he taught me a bunch of songs, which is great for like an up and coming guitar player that you know.
Yeah.
But after like 2 years, I started kind of learning songs by myself and like, you know, learning ear training and like figuring, you know, if like I listened to a song, I could figure it out. But I came into like the lessons one day and I knew Eruption. Like I kind of figured it out by ear. And he's like, you know, unless you want to learn music theory, he's like, you could probably like just kind of go off and
You're
like,
good, yeah.
Right.
Not much more I'm going to be
right,
teaching
yeah,
you. That's cool.
He gave me the option, and I'm like, I was a kid, so I'm like, I don't want to learn music theory now. So I just started playing out, and that's kind of where it started.
So you start off usually if you're taking lessons in guitar stuff, you usually start off learning chords and stuff like that, the basic stuff like that. And then some people don't ever progress into that lead thing. Some people are good with the rhythm guitar section, learning how to play chords and stuff like that. But obviously at some point that wasn't what you were thinking. You went into the solo thing and you're amazing at it. So what point do you want to, how does that work with some people? You know, I'm curious sometimes, like, at what point do you want to be the lead guy versus the rhythm guy? What is it just because you start off learning Iommi and Rhodes and Van Halen, and you're like, well, that's what they do. I want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I was always into the lead guitar players anyways. So
yeah.
But
is it a similar story as like the Van Halens and the Dimebags where like one day they disappear from the world in their room, and then they just go ham, and then when they come out to the world again, they're that guy all of a sudden. They weren't that guy, then they resurface, now they're that guy.
Yeah, when I was in school, like everybody's like, oh, like yeah, like everybody called me Doug in school. They're like, oh, Doug plays guitar, and then finally, it was like I was in high school, and I did the high school rock-offs, and they like announced my name. They're like, you're in the high school rock-offs? And there was another kid that was doing it, I think, too. And they all knew he played guitar. And he was like, good. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing the high school rock-offs. They're like, oh, yeah, okay. And then I ended up making it to, like, the finals. And they're like, whoa, like, you made it to the finals?
No one took you seriously
right,
at all?
Yeah. And then I took second place. So it was kind of funny. But
that was your first time in any kind of competition with the whole thing and everything?
Pretty much, yeah. To where like everybody at school like took notice, and they're like, "Wow, like okay, like he's."
Do you think that moment might have caused you to like even go like more obsessive with this whole thing? You got a taste of success. You see you're getting some accolades, and you're feeling good about yourself.
Yeah.
So you think that might have even like boosted this thing to that next level? Because dude, you're a next level kind of guy, right? I mean, I mean, you're around a lot of musicians also. You know what I'm talking about. You're somebody who keeps like you've definitely at some point taken this thing very seriously and decided you're going to be as good as you can be.
Yeah.
Not everybody does that, but you did.
Yeah.
So what, like at some point you become a little more obsessive than the other people. What does it? And it's these little things that happen through life, those little moments, you don't forget.
Right.
You've had some probably incredible gigs. You played with frickin' Ripper Owens, dude. But you don't forget those little ones that got you there, right? It's so much fun, those parts,
Yeah, for sure. It's, when it comes down to it, they're all kind of, it's all kind of the same thing, My job is a lead guitar player,
Yeah, right.
So whoever it's, whether it's playing for Ripper Owens or Bronx Country or, playing with my girlfriend, it's all kind of, I approach everything kind of the same way. So.
And you're also like a hired hand also. I mean, if bands, guy can't make it today, they know to call Doug and he'll come out and take care of it.
Yep. Yeah. That's what I'm doing tonight, actually. So
yeah, right. You were just saying I mean, that's cool, man.
Yeah,
that's cool. And how like is that partially? Obviously, you're good, but is that also partially because these bands also know that you have? I mean, do you just know a ton of songs? Is that part of the whole thing?
That's part of it.
yeah, I mean, like you must, right? Like, and there's certain bands that you've kind of probably know and worked a little bit with, so you already know their set lists and everything, so they always can go to you. Yeah. That's nice, though.
Yeah, I like. Yeah, just like the amount of like, that's how I kind of got into country music, is I started filling in for like country bands and stuff like that. So I did that, learned all those songs, and then, it's just kind of, some bands kind of have like overlapping and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I do, that's part of the gig. I know a lot of songs.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it's just like, we talk about it with some of the other guys. If you have the ability to play guitar and sing backup vocals, you're so much more valuable than the guy that can't do that. If you can do certain things, you become more and more valuable.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
Knowing tons of songs as a guitar player and being able to play them all.
Yeah,
man, you become so valuable to so many people.
Yeah.
So what's the first band you were ever in? I mean, because you were talking about how you kind of, this whole thing already started off as like a solo thing for you,
right? Yeah.
Did you find some guys, and did you get into a band early on?
So kind of what happened was my dad went to school with Billy Morris.
Oh.
So he, when I got good enough, he's like, hey, eventually when you get good enough, he's like, I'll take you out to see Billy. I'm like, okay. So practice, figured out some songs. And I went out, and Billy like just took to me like immediately. He's like, hey, you want to come up on stage? I'm like, yes. So he got me on stage with Cleveland's Breakfast Club, and so that kind of like turned into a thing. It was
How old were you at that point?
I was about 12, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my dad would take me out to watch them like every weekend, and Billy would like do the same thing, like bring me on stage. I'd play like Eruption or something that like, wowed people, and he'd be like, hey, he's like, throw the kid a couple bucks. He's got to buy glue sticks or whatever for school, And so after doing that for about a year, Billy's like, dude, like, you got to get your own band. So he kind of kicked me to the curb for a bit. And
forced you to do it.
Right, yeah. He so I ended up joining a band called Into Deep, which was it was like a cover band, But then at the same time I was in that band, I was in a band called Velocity that eventually turned into Never Surrender, which was the band that I did the rock-offs with. So, yeah. So that was kind of like, it was all kind of like at the same time.
What kind of music are you playing? Like, when you say cover, like, what kind of covers are you doing?
Oh, like, that band was kind of like early 2000s, like Blink-182, all the stuff that's popular right now.
I got you. You.
So a lot of the early 2000s, and we did like all the classic stuff too. But yeah, it was all young guys in that band too. So
then what happened? So is this high school then? We're getting into high school actually.
Yeah.
We're starting high school's beginning. You're in bands, and then what happens through high school? By the way, you went to Buckeye High.
Yes.
And my grandkids go there. What's up, guys? And they don't go to high school yet, but
right.
That's all one big complex right there. So it's like, but that's cool.
Yeah.
It's a huge place.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, I kind of did that like all the way through high school. Just like by the end of it, I'm not exactly sure. But Billy, so when Billy was kind of bringing me up, he gave me, like, this is one of my favorite things to say. I'm like, you could either work at Sheetz or you could be a full-time guitar player. What do you want to do? So that's kind of,
He gave you two options.
Yeah, he's like, what do you want to do? He's like, so I'm like, I want to play guitar. So that's kind of, playing in bands and making money, and, it's been the job ever since.
So that is all you do? You're a full-time musician, basically? That's it?
Yep.
Have you ever had a real job? I mean, have you ever done that before? Or if you've been able to just go right into this?
Yeah, I think my dad tried to, like, give me a healthy dose of reality one time, and he tried to, like, he's like, hey, I got a little job for you. He's like, come and help me. And, like, every once in a while, he'll, like, ask me to help him out or whatever. He's in, like, construction and stuff like that. But other than that, like, I don't think
it wasn't ever really in the cards.
No, yeah, not really. Yeah, anything to do to keep away from the day job.
That's cool though.
Yeah.
You've been able to do it. I mean, dude, it's so rare. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so hard to do right now. I mean, like it's not exactly like you can write a song and retire on it.
Right, yeah.
But you're doing that thing that, like we see a lot of the musicians doing. Like, you have the Billy Sullivans and stuff doing this similar thing where you just gig wherever you can gig, whenever you can gig, with whoever you can gig with.
Yeah, soak up the market.
Yeah, like you're just, and if you present yourself that way, and if you're good enough, and you can just gig every day.
Yeah.
I mean, you can literally gig every single day, and you could make a living as long as you can keep busy.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Now, what happens after high school? So high school's over. You get out. Now you gotta like.
So that's kind of where Bronx Country comes in. So one of the only kind of day jobs that I had, I used to run sound at a place called the Jailhouse in Grafton.
Yeah, right there on Grafton Road. And
yeah, so that's how I met a lot of like bands, because they'd all come through and they'd all be like, oh, like, they think I'm the sound guy. But then
how'd you get that job?
That was through Billy too. Billy's done a lot for me throughout my career, and I got out of high school and I was going to Tri-C for audio engineering. And Billy's like, I think I said to my dad, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to go, blah, blah. He's like, well, my dad was kind of cool with it, but my mom was not. And he's like, if you're not going to go, he's like, you got to, figure out something to do, So Billy ended up giving me that job at the Jailhouse. He's like, hey, it'd be cool to, like, figure out, kind of do what you wanted to do anyways, go to school for. So I did that for about a year and a half, and all the bands that would come through, there'd usually be like one person that would be like, hey, it's Dougie. Like, they know me as like the guitar player. And
right.
Then they like end up like bringing me on stage and stuff like that. And
and at this point, you're only like 19 years old. You're still young. I mean, 19, 20.
Yeah, 18, 19, yeah.
Wow.
But then there was one night where, so Bronx Country as a band, Bronx has been a band for years. They were like the heavy metal band back in the day. And so Bronx Country started about maybe 10 years ago, and the singer, Jeff Bodine, came out and watched. He was hanging out, and he was watching a band one night. He's like, hey, I'm putting Bronx back together. He's like, do you want to be the guitar player at Bronx Country? I'm like, yes. And that's kind of where that whole thing kind of started.
Yeah, just like this simple question and a simple yes, and now we're on our way.
Right, yeah.
And you've been doing that ever since?
Pretty much, yeah. So it's been about I think I've been in the band almost 5 years. So kind of like, and kind of doing other things alongside of it too, like filling in for other bands. So
you don't stop, basically. Anytime you can play, you're ready. You're ready.
Yeah, for sure.
You're always ready. Is that basically how you kind of like approach it?
Yep, try to be.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So at what point do you start hooking up with a guy like Ripper Owens? How do you get involved with his solo thing, and how do that all happen?
So Ripper was doing like little, he was doing some solo shows with his guitar player Scott, and he'd do double billings with Billy. So every once in a while, I think for those shows, I think I was playing with Billy, and he ended up coming up with us at the end of the night. We do like Electric Eye, we do all like the Judas Priest classics, stuff like that. And I was good friends with Billy's bass player, and we were talking one day. He's like, yeah, he's like Ripper's gonna do some solo shows, and he's like, I'm gonna play bass for him, but we're gonna do one show with only one guitar player. I think it was in Michigan. And I'm like, you can't play Judas Priest songs with one guitar player. I'm like, you need two guitar players. I'm like, I'll do it for free. And Paul, the bass player, is like, all right. So he went to the guys. He's like, hey, like, Dougie said, like, he'll do the gig, like, if you need another guitar player. And they're like, yeah, sure. So I came down. I learned all the songs, learned the set list, came down, played them. They're like, all right, great, you're in. So that's kind of how it happened. I'm
no
like,
kidding.
Yeah. I just said, I'm like, I'll just do it for free. And
so, yeah, I mean, isn't it wild? Do you think that people miss out on opportunities so often because they just don't ask?
I think so, yeah.
Doesn't it just seem like things work out as long as you just open your mouth and say something?
It's true. You got to throw yourself into those kind of situations, Like, I wouldn't have, if I wasn't there and I wasn't able to be like, hey, like, I'll do it. Like, then I probably would never have the gig, you know?
And you knew who Ripper Owens was at this point. You know, he'd already done the Judas Priest thing and all that. I mean, the movie came out for Rockstar came out already, which was loosely based on that whole story.
Right, yeah.
So I mean, he's a pretty popular guy, especially around here. Everybody knows who he is.
Yeah.
So you meet him for the first time and everything. Cool guy. Was it all?
He's the most normal guy ever, and it's so funny because the first time that he came into the rehearsal space, we were like, me and Scott were going over the intro to the Ripper, and then he just like knocks on the door and like walks in. It was like the coolest moment ever. Like you couldn't have planned it out any better than that. But yeah, he's super normal. Rides in the van with everybody else, you know.
Oh yeah, he never considers himself above anybody. Type thing.
Yeah,
that's so cool, man.
Yeah,
and like a guy like him who has the chops that he has and everything that he has. Do you notice things differently about how he goes about his business than you see other people do? I mean, this is a dude who's done things on a scale that a lot of people you've played with really haven't yet.
Right, yeah.
And seen things that they haven't. Do you notice anything different about him as far as how he approaches his craft even?
Not really. He's just like...
Is he just that talented where he doesn't really like have to like...
He does... So he doesn't do warm-ups.
Oh my God.
He just walks... He does like... yeah, he just walks us on stage and he does it. Yeah.
He's ready. He's just ready to go. He shows up and it's time to fire it out.
Pretty much.
Man, dude, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the real deal.
so the first time you play out, what's that? What was that? How the first time you play out with a concert like this, where I mean, he's drawing people. They're insane.
Yeah.
People are going crazy. You guys are doing pre-songs probably also, right?
Yep.
You're doing fucking pre-songs with Ripper Owens, dude.
Yeah.
It's got to be the coolest.
Yeah, for sure. Especially for somebody like I was a Judas Priest fan to begin with, so I knew a lot of that music, you know, coming into the gig. But yeah, when it first started, it was kind of a weird time because it was like at the end of COVID, so people were still kind of like, should we go out? Like, what should we do? And like some of the venues, like I think like the first couple, all the out of state gigs were kind of weird. But like the Ohio gigs, like nobody cared.
Yeah, right, dude.
But the Michigan one was kind of weird because it was like still when everything was like
people didn't know what to do.
Right, yeah. So it was kind of funky. But by the end of like some of the gigs that we did like last year were they were super cool. They were all packed. So
cool, man.
Yeah.
Exciting as hell. Do you get like you play out a lot, right? You do that, but are these a little different for you when you're up there? Do you feel like you anticipate this a little differently?
Right, yeah. It's kind of funky because you kind of, with the other gigs, you play for like, 3 hours and like you have to be there and stuff like that. But with this, it's like, you set up, you sound check during the day, and then you go back to the hotel and you kind of sit around all day and wait
for the gig.
Yeah. So you just kind of like, you wait to play for an hour to an hour and a half. It's kind of it's a different kind of thing.
See, when I hear that kind of story, my mind goes right to the fact that you can understand why these bands and these rock stars get into partying and drugs and alcohol. Yeah. There's nothing else to do.
It's true.
Like you're just sitting around waiting, and this is the life, you know? And so eventually you got to have some fun or do something. The gig is only an hour and a half long, usually an hour long if, two... That's it.
Yeah. Yep.
When you're playing those kind of things. The rest of the time, what are you going to do?
Right, yeah. And that's kind of the good thing about everybody in the Ripper band is everybody's pretty down to earth and, everybody's pro, so it's not
big
like...
time.
Right, yeah. So it's kind of a good situation for a youngin' like me.
Yeah, right.
so I'm not like, going off and,
going crazy.
Right, yeah.
It's kind of funny though, but when you did that happen to you when, you're learning how to play all these instruments, not all these instruments, you know how to play guitar through all these guys, through all these different guys. But the stories that are coming out back in those days were, the party and the musicians, you know, like it was both. And then you actually now are kind of entering into that whole world of things, and it's really not like that at all, is it? I mean, it's kind of like they're drinking coffee and they're talking about stock market or whatever, whatever. It's like everybody else, kind of, right?
Yep. Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
Yes, we hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm always trying to find that story. I'm like, when's someone going to tell me the story when there was 12 girls in the room?
Right,
and, like Led Zeppelin would tell, and it's like, no, because it doesn't happen anymore. It's really not, it's not the same way it used to be, I guess.
Right, yeah.
That's just the way it is, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
We've progressed as people.
Right. Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, everybody has their stories, right?
Yeah. Do you have any? Do you have any crazy stuff? I mean, if you mean, like Pat and I used to be in bands. We would just a few times that we would play out, man, and we would see crazy shit. I mean, there's stuff that happens,
Yeah.
I mean, do you ever looking out and just be like, see some things? I mean, one thing that's cool about being on stage, if you've never done it before, that's really cool, is that, like, when you're up there, people think that you're disconnected. So, and I think probably some people actually are up there, but for the most part, you are very connected with everybody. You look at everyone's faces and you're watching. You can see what's going on over here. There's a little scrap going on over here, and this guy's arguing with this woman, and this guy.
Yeah, right. My so in Bronx, me and the lead singer, like if there's a girl up front, like he'll like forget the words and I'll forget the guitar part at the same time. And, like, we look over each other, we, like, laugh. And people always ask, they're like, so, like, what do you guys talk about when you're up there? And it's, like, it's usually, like, a chick. That's, like,
third row.
Right, yeah. Yep. That's usually it.
That does happen, right? I mean, but it's just cool. Do you ever have have you ever had a moment where it didn't go well? Have you ever had a moment where when it was all said and done and you were coming off and you were like, ooh?
I'm not exactly sure. Usually
that's probably a no.
Right, yeah. usually I'm pretty prepared. So
yeah, no, I'm not talking about you specifically, but just the whole, the show itself. Did you ever just have a bad show where you were a part of it?
Yeah.
You kind of come off the stage and you're just like, well, that didn't go as well as we thought. Probably not, huh?
Yeah. Usually everything kind of goes pretty
cool.
Yeah. So
that's a good thing. That's good, man. I just, it'd make for a better show if you had some
right,
really.
No.
But it's good that it's not happening.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break.
Sweet.
When we come back, talk a little bit more with Dougie.
Hi everybody, this is DJ Terry from the Homegrown Hit Show on 216 The Beat. If you're looking for some things to do this week, on Monday, December 26th, check out comedian Michael Copenhaver at Knacker Jackson Warren. Or on Thursday, December 29th, check out Moise Borges at the Bop Stop in Cleveland. Get your groove on Friday night, December 30th with Tricky Dick and the Cover-Ups, and they're at Brothers Lounge in Cleveland. For New Year's Eve, we got two shows. You can go see Tricky Dick and the Cover-Ups, and they're at the Wild Eagle Steak and Saloon out in Broadview Heights, or you can check out Glad to Be Here, and they're at Bar 30 in Parma. Hey, and if you get a chance, listen. But no matter what you do, keep rocking, support local music, and love one another. DJ Terry is out.
We're back, everybody, with Mr. Dougie Manross. One quick question I want to ask you, though, is I did find somewhere where you actually have a name, Lix.
Yes.
Lixx.
Right,
I found it very interesting. This was a little while ago. I mean, you've since dropped this, but I'm curious about that.
Yeah, people still call me that, but
for obvious, I mean, Lix, I get it, but
so when I first started playing out with Billy, he would invite me. So my parents' house was right around the corner from his mom's house. So he's like, hey, I need some rocks moved. He's like, you want to come help me move rocks tomorrow? Like, yeah, sure. So I would go over to his mom's house. I'd move rocks for him and do yard work and stuff like that. And after the yard work was done, he'd leave me in the garage. He's like, hey, take his guitar and practice this lick. And he'd show me a lick, really slow. He's like, practice it really slow. And then he'd go to Giant Eagle or something and go shopping. Come back. He's like, you got that lick down? Yep. And every time I do yard work for his mom, he'd show me a lick, and that's how he'd pay me. And so after a while, I started
genius.
I started getting all these licks in my back pocket, and that's when he's like, you need a nickname. He's like, how about Licks? I'm like, okay, and it just kind of stuck, and people still call me that to this day. It's kind of funny.
That is cool.
Yeah.
How much you think that attributed to how much better you got doing having him show you those little things, those little lessons like that?
I still play those licks to this day. So
no kidding.
Yeah.
Are they go-tos Is it just little go-to stuff that is the Dougie? This is Dougie right here, right?
So
this is what makes you.
When he was showing me that, he's like, they were all licks that I guess he learned from Paul Gilbert.
Oh, wow.
So, because he was on the road with him, and he's like, Paul showed me this lick, and they were all they were all Paul Gilbert licks, but they're licks that he ripped off from Gary Moore. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So this is just like the game of telephone,
right? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So they were all like, it's you can like go back and like listen to early Gary Moore stuff and hear those licks, and you're like, oh, like that's where he got it from. And they were like, Paul Gilbertized, and then Billyized, and then I.
Now Doug's got him. Dougie's got him, and they're going to be Dougieized.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, nobody would ever know that that's where I got the licks from. But yeah,
that's funny. But isn't that just the way it is?
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, how many people are literally coming up with new licks and they're not somebody else's from somewhere else? It's funny. I think even when you think you come up with your own stuff, half the time you just don't realize you've stolen it from somebody else.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you've heard it so many times, and it's in your head, and you're like, oh, man, I just came up with this good idea. And then all of a sudden, in 6 months, a song comes on the radio, and you're like, that's a fucking song.
Right. Yeah, right. But I was like, one of my favorite guitar players growing up was a guy named Phil X, and he was kind of like a master. He plays for Bon Jovi now, but he was a master at kind of like taking things and like making them his own kind of. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I watched was I think he took the tapping part of Eruption, like the end of it where it goes like
yeah.
And he instead of tapping it, he like played it with his fingers, like instead of
picked it.
Yeah, he picked it all. And that's where I'm like, all right, that's super cool. Like, and it's kind of like you kind of take something, you kind of make it your own. And that's,
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, now we've talked about these bands that you've been in. They've either been a situation where you've joined an existing band, basically but that's kind of what you've been doing so far throughout this thing. You haven't really, I mean, so do you write your own music? I mean, do you have a little studio at the house maybe, or do you have all that set up already for yourself?
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm kind of at the point where right now I'm like, well, like I've been playing in cover bands for like 10 years, and like, it's kind of to the point where I want to do what I want to do now. So I'm kind of starting to write some stuff. I used to a lot, like when I was younger, because I was the band that I was in, Never Surrender, was kind of like an original band, and but since then, it just kind of became kind of the job to kind of like learn songs, play songs, the weekend warrior kind of stuff. But then now I'm at the point where I'm like, well, like I got to write some songs, So for me, I'm a terrible lyric writer. So I'm always kind of like looking for other people to like work with, So that's kind of what I'm starting to do. Trying to reach out to feelers and stuff like that. So
I got what you're saying. So you have some limitations like everybody, but you just realize them.
Yeah.
Some people aren't very good lyric writers, and they still give it hell. You know what I mean? You're like, man, maybe you should find somebody else.
To be honest, like I'd rather watch paint dry than write words. Like, so that's
just not something that's for you. I mean, and you got so much going on wrapped up in that guitar. I don't know why you would need to write lyrics anyway.
Yeah, I just kind of I come up with the parts, and then if somebody else can come up with some words or some ideas for the song, like great. Like I always like to work with other people. So
do you want to be the singer?
Yes.
So that's one of the things that you want to do that you haven't really been able to yet.
Right. Yeah. I've done like for the past few years, I've kind of. Ever since COVID kind of started, I kind of started doing more gigs by myself, like acoustic stuff, and I did a band called Shaker, which I was like the lead singer, and it was a trio, and it was an all request thing. So
oh no shit, you got to know a lot of songs.
Yeah,
man.
So the band was me, a drummer named Adam Radisky who played with Billy, and then Paul Lewis, and those two guys were like Paul was a Nashville guy for a long time, and then Adam. This has been around for, I think he's like a few years older than me. Like I think he's like 27, but yeah, those guys know a lot of songs too. So it kind of, but I was the singer of that.
So that's and was that your introduction to doing all this, or were you always like in your room and stuff, always picking and singing at the same time? Because that takes. Not everybody can just pick up a guitar that knows how to play guitar and they can just sing along with it. You got to. Again, practice that.
Right, yeah.
Did you have to also? I mean, was this something you had to work on?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always kind of like sang songs, like, I would sing like Summer '69 or like something that's like kind of easy
Bryan
or
Adams
whatever.
type
Yeah.
stuff. Let me ask you this. So the thing that makes this interesting to me, this conversation right now that we're having, is that you've played in Bronx country, which is one complete facet. And you've played in Ripper Owens, which is, there's nothing alike there.
Right, yeah.
Nothing. So what's Dougie going to sound like? What what is going to come out of all this stuff that you've now been, you've been influenced by Bernie Hansel, who's Merciful Fate and all this stuff. And then you Ripper Owens, which is Priest, but when you finally put it all together, what do you hear yourself sounding like, or what do you think it's going to be like? What kind of music are you going to come up with?
I don't know. I definitely probably rock. That's
what's in you the most. I mean, you feel most comfortable in playing some kind of rock, more of a hard rock type of a feel too.
Yeah,
but doesn't that the guitar kind of lend itself to that kind of thing in some ways where you can really open up and rip some solos when you're playing some heavier music.
Yeah, for sure. I always like the idea of good pop songs with rock guitar, well-written songs with rock guitar. That's why I always like the Zooters,
Yeah.
So, but one of my favorite local bands to go see, and this kind of got me kind of pushed in the right direction, of wanting to kind of get back into original music, is the band Truss.
Oh.
Yeah. So I used to play with all those guys.
Wow.
Yeah. I used to play with all those guys back in Never Surrender. So the drummer, actually, that was Velocity. So Velocity was me, the drummer Holden Shalick from
Holden,
Truss.
yeah.
Yeah. And then Hannah, the singer. And then it ended up Eric Kennedy, who's in Lillier, too.
Yeah.
He ended up playing bass in that band. And then I was a guitar player.
Well, Truss leads off our third season.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Let me rephrase that. Truss led off our third season.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we just talked to Hannah and she was the only one that was in here.
Yeah, all right.
But we did talk to Hannah and we went over everything. We had Lillier in here once already.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So Eric has been mentioned more than once. I want to get him in. We want to get him in here.
He's one of my favorite people ever.
Oh, no shit. He's a cool guy. We haven't got to meet him. Is he a good dude?
Yeah, super cool. Yeah.
Really? So you were into the Truss thing?
Yeah. So they went off to Ohio State when they went to college.
Right.
And I was just kind of left here. So they're like, I think we did one gig down there, and they're like, you should come to Ohio State. I'm like, no. No. But they ended up kind of starting to do gigs down there, I think, and then they
got popular in Columbus first.
Yeah, yep, and then they came back, and now they're doing really good. And every once in a while, I'll go and watch them. I'm like, God, I got to get back into original music.
Yeah, man, I think dude, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It looks so fun.
Well, I think, and I think there's something special about when you've put your heart and soul into it, and that's what you do when you write these songs. You put your heart and soul into it, and other people relate to it and respond to it. They know the words, and they know it's yours.
Yeah. Yep.
There's something to be said about that you just don't ever get from a cover band. You're just not going to get that.
Right, yeah.
So is this something you've already started, or you already got some songs written? Do you have songs written?
Sorta. I got my ideas. I'm kind of like a parts guy, so I have a bunch of parts I've had for years and stuff. So I'm just kind of I think I need somebody to come in and be like, all right, this is just somebody to bounce those ideas off of, to kind of put them in focus.
So you like the idea of getting together and collaborating with some people and make that your band. So your band, in your eyes, is not just somebody who can play, but they got to be able to collaborate with me and be able to there's some things that I'm really going to be good at, and that's going to be my thing. But the ones that I'm not, I need people who can do all that.
Yeah.
Would this be your band?
Yeah.
Is this going to be like Manross?
I think so.
That's a cool name, dude. If you just went with Manross, dude, that would be a
funny?
Cool name.
Tim Burris told me to do that years ago. He's like, dude, you should just name the band Manross.
I'm telling you, there's something about that that's cool, man. Yeah. It really is. It's a cool name. It could be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what you'll do. So this is gonna be your band. So you'll hire guys. Would you be more interested in a permanent set of people, or do you like the idea of possibly changing the parts out and being able to work with all kinds of different musicians to create this?
That's kind of it. I've met so many people over the years that I've become friends with, and that I would love to work with on stuff like that. So just getting guys that would be able to play all that kind of different whether it's rock or whatever it ends up being. You
don't have to pigeonhole yourself into any one thing.
Right, yeah, that's kind of, but just getting the guys that would be, the right guys, I guess, to play those parts, So
yeah, I mean, even in the society, not society, but the way things are set up musically right now in the industry is what I'm trying. We talk about it constantly here. The whole LP album thing is kind of like fading away, and the single thing is becoming more popular. And with what you're talking about here, that would actually help your situation, because you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into a whole album of songs. You could put out a single where you have this drummer, this bass player, this singer, or, and then the next song could be completely different.
Yeah.
And it could lean itself to country. It doesn't have to be the same song each time. And since you have so many different influences, you could pull this off.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking more?
Kind of, sort of. When COVID kind of happened, another person that kind of like started to like get me kind of back into the original thing was Gio Mastro, and he would like do a single like every month, like kind of like what Craig does.
Yeah, right.
And
Martini.
Yep. And I saw that, I'm like, that's a good idea, because it was always kind of a different kind of like one song would be kind of like an adult alternative kind of song, and then the next would be like a country song. And it would be like really cool how he'd do it, and it would always kind of end up sounding like him.
Yeah, right. So you could know it's who it is, but it's not the same music.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm, what I'm kind of shooting for, I think. So
I think that's interesting.
Yeah,
I really do, because I think that's tough. I don't think it's going to be easy, because I mean, one of the things we're finding out here is it's hard to cross crowds.
Yeah.
It's hard to it's hard to get the people who like this music to come over and give this a chance and start crossing them over, but. As long as it sounds like Manross, which I'm going with that name.
Yeah, there you go. 10%.
Yeah. Hey, you said it now.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
No, that's great, man. I'm looking forward to it, dude. I really think it's great. Man, dude, I'm telling you, I think you're a fucking phenomenal talent.
Thanks,
I
man.
really do. One thing I will say is this. I think that on our show, we've had many, many great musicians. We've had Rick Ray. We've had Billy Sullivan. We've had guitar, just tons of great guitar players.
Yeah.
Martini's a great bass player, all these great guys. But one thing about all of them is that when we get them in here, they're telling us their 4-decade story of stuff that's already happened.
Yeah.
Their lives, and they're at the tail end of their careers now, and they're not on the big stages that they once were, but their stories are phenomenal, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
One of the reasons I really wanted to get you on here is because I just get the vibe from you that you're one of these guys, but you're just in the midst of it right now.
Yeah.
So you're like right now forming those stories that these guys are talking about right now, because you're going to be one of these dudes.
Right.
Like I can see in 20 years where it'll be our 40th season, and we're going to get you back in here, and your hair will be grayer, and you'll have a big goatee and everything, but you're going to be like, dude, 4 decades of them, remember? And you'll have all them stories, because I think you're that guy. Like one thing that was cool is them guys, there's quite a few of them, there's a bunch of them. There was a time where there was a lot of these. I don't see a lot of guys like you out there, dude. You're flying that flag, dude. Guitar kind of like lost a little bit there for a while, where people weren't as interested in it as they were. And you're one of them dudes that are coming out of that like, like you're doing it, man.
I think I was one of the only kids that in my school that played guitar, like at all.
And when we went to school, Pat, how many people played guitar? Like everybody. Yeah, everybody was a guitar player, man. Everybody. Yeah. You could even find bass players or drummers. It was like everyone wanted to play guitar.
Yeah.
And then when that kind of stopped, and I see a guy like you, dude, I love that. I mean, to me, I'm encouraged by it. I see that there's somebody out there who can fucking still flat out lay out and do this shit. And I just hope that you inspire that next generation of people too that come out and can do this stuff, man.
And that's kind of, it's cool for me, because I teach one day a week. I teach at a place called Rocktown in Lorraine, and it's cool to give back to teach kids how to play guitar.
Is it mostly kids?
Mostly, kind of. It's all ages, but it's usually a lot of kids. So
yeah, how's that? I mean, how'd you get? See, I didn't even know that.
Right?
Yeah, I didn't even know that. All of a sudden, you bring that up. Now I gotta ask you.
I had to make the plug.
Yeah, but so how is that? I mean, that's got to be another whole entire thing. I mean,
it's different. But,
did Bernie influence you at all to do that?
Yeah, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, I do like the same thing that he did to me. He when I first walked in, he's like, "All right, here's a book." He's like, "It'll either take you like 3 weeks, or it'll take you 6 months, like depending on how you practice. So it's kind of what I do. I'm like, kid walks in, I'm like, all right, this is the Book of Doom. I'm like, if you practice, you can get through this in like 3 weeks. You can get through it in a week, really. Or, if you don't practice, it'll take you 6 months.
Yeah, right.
And you won't be any better than you are now.
Yeah.
So,
I remember asking Bernie about that. I was like, dude, it's like, do you ever have that moment where you got the guy that walks in and his expectations are just off the charts, and you're like, he's not that guy, you know?
Right, yeah.
And Bernie was like, you know what? You never say anything negative to nobody. It's always positive reinforcement.
It's true.
And then he made a really good point. He said, that guy that comes in and he's having a hard time learning that stuff. How many times you see them people a couple years down the road, and that guy that came in and it was natural and he could do it. He's not even playing guitar anymore.
True.
And the guy that had to work hard at it because he had to work hard at it, he's still doing it.
Yeah.
Now he's gigging, he's playing, and he's a guitar player.
Yeah.
Do you notice the same kind of thing? Is it the same thing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've only been doing it for about I think it's going on 2 years now. But like the people that are like naturally gifted, it's kind of easy for them, and they don't have to work towards anything to like Because for me, like I practice all the time. Like even when I was
still constantly do you practice?
Always trying to get better. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but like I think the people that it comes easy to, they kind of forget like how much work it took, like for somebody like me, like where like I'm like the amount of time that I have invested in like just playing guitar is like I don't want to give it up now.
Yeah, right.
So I think that's kind of where that kind of comes in.
So to learn something like Eruption.
Yeah.
How long does it take you? I mean, and at what point are you like, oh, I'm happy with this?
Right.
Like, how long does that take?
I think I'm finally happy with where I'm at.
Just
on it.
now.
Yeah. For that song, it took stages because I learned it and I kind of like learned it okay. Like I didn't learn it note for note or anything, but there was a time where I got like older and older. I'm like, I should learn that solo. It was when he kind of passed away. I'm like, I should learn that solo like note for note. And I sat down, I watched like YouTube videos, I slowed it down, and like I just like went to like work on it. And by the end of it, I'm like, I think I got it like pretty much down, like note for note. So, yeah, it's still.
That's pretty. I've seen you do the video.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, dude, I can't believe how good he is.
Yeah, thanks.
I know I'm being serious. I mean, sometimes I'm just like, man, dude, you're so clean and precise. You're technically sound like your every note is so like that. You're definitely practiced.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it, man. Very good, man. And dude, you've already done nothing. You're not even 30 years old. You've already got a hell of a start to this whole entire thing. And I just think that there's not a lot of competition out there.
Yeah.
Like you can just go in there right now with what you got, man, and you're in control of you at this point.
Right. My dad always told me, like, I think that's one of the things that kind of like made me like as persistent and like just as I am is he's like, he's like, somebody always wants your gig, So like, you never want to be, never want to half-ass anything or whatever. He's like, somebody's always going to be able to, whether they're as good as you or not, He's like, somebody always wants your gig. So
yeah, when we had a Hooked Like Hell, we were talking to her, and that's how she got that. Her spot was they were in California, they were in this band. She goes and shows up. She's just hanging out. The singer doesn't show up for that practice.
Yeah.
They hear her doing some stuff on the side. They're like, oh, you sing? Okay. She gets up there, started her whole life. Now she's a singer. That person's out of the band. As I said, that's number one lesson, right? You make your practices.
For sure.
Because the one you don't make could be your last.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Man. It's wild. It's wild. So what's the future looking like right now? I mean, you're still in the whole Bronx country thing. You guys are playing, you're doing your thing, but you're going to start writing music. But do you see any other things that you got brewing, projects, other bands that you're messing around with, anything like that? I mean,
I got some ideas. Kind of. So Bronx takes up a lot of my year.
How many times you guys play? How many gigs a year are you doing with them?
So it's about 2. We're shooting for usually 2 to 3 a month. So it's between 24, probably more
30,
than 24. Yeah,
like 30 a month,
30
a year.
Yeah, 30 a year. Probably a little more, maybe, but yeah, I'm always looking for like just stuff to do, especially, just to kind of like fill the gaps between all the Bronx gigs. Cause we only do like I said, like 2 a month. So
What about session work? Did anybody ever ask you to come in and lay tracks down for them and stuff like that?
yeah, I do that too a little bit, not much, but yeah, every once in a while.
Anything in particular? Anything cool that anybody can hear and go out and listen to? I mean, when you lay that stuff down, those are your tracks, right? I mean, they're having you come up with your own solo and stuff like that and put down guitar.
Yeah, I did a session for Mike Onesco, who's like a local guitar player guy. He was signed to Shrapnel Records in the 90s, but he was like on the blues side of it.
Yeah.
And he asked me to come in, and he's like, I need a guitar solo for the song Good Times, Bad Times. And the rhythm section was Jeff Martin from Badlands and Greg Chason from Badlands.
Wow.
So that was one session that I did, and I just recently did one for a friend of mine, Mike Church. He's a producer guy, and he was producing a country artist. And I couldn't tell you the name of the country artist to save my life. But that's session work, right?
Yeah, right. Just get in, lay it down, get out, get paid.
But the producer's Mike Church.
So at least you knew that.
Yeah. Yep.
So, somebody got some.
Right, yeah. He got some good guitar parts for that song. Yeah.
So what's going on from here on out, man? Like, what are you thinking? Like, what do you see your future being like? You're so young, dude. That's the thing that makes me so like. I'm wondering, like, when you even as a teacher, does anyone ever walk in and look at you how young you are and go, how's this guy gonna teach someone?
Yeah.
You ever get that? I mean, you're a young dude. I mean, you got a lot of left ahead. I mean,
yeah.
Do you see yourself on the bigger stage? Are you driven to become very famous, or do you like what you're doing, kind of?
I mean, I never really set out to be like famous. And my thing was always like I just wanted to make a living playing guitar, So that's anything to keep my head above water and, just do what I love every day is kind of the goal. Yeah. But aside from that, playing bigger stages is definitely fun. So
Oh yeah. I mean, like, and you've done some of those. I mean, you've done a little bit of that, right? I mean, you had your taste of that. You get your taste of what this whole local scene is. I mean, you're a rising star, I believe, at least.
Oh, cheers, man. Thanks.
Anything else? Got gigs coming up? Anything that you want to promote? Anything that you did?
Bronx Country.
This will probably come out on Christmas, dude.
Okay.
I'm probably going to put you out on Christmas. I think it's Christmas Day. When's Christmas Day? Sunday? Yeah, I think it's going to be that Saturday, though. Whatever that Saturday is.
Right.
It's going to be
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. I was going to bring a fucking hat and a Santa hat. No, but I will put it out there. So if there's anything you want to promote, that'll be after that date that you know about.
Yeah, kind of the two main things that I have going for sure right now next year is Bronx Country every month. And me and my girlfriend, Jess, she plays in a band called Speed Rail. We do a duo together. And we call ourselves Dougie and Jess. So creative.
Oh, and where do you guys play out?
We do like Thursdays, Sundays, kind of like afternoon patio kind of stuff. But every once in a while we'll play like a club like Mary Arts in Lakewood, which is like our go-to spot. So we just do like duo stuff. Like,
Was she singing?
Yeah, yep, yeah. She's a dead ringer for Stevie Nicks. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty okay. So.
So you got that going on too.
Yep.
So you do got a lot of shit.
Those are kind of like my main things that kind of keep me working through the whole year. But aside from that, just filling in whenever somebody calls. So.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's it.
Sweet.
I think we're done. We're out of time, and freaking, it was awesome, dude.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
It was as fun as I thought it was going to be.
Awesome.
Keep your eyes open for this guy. I swear I do believe this is one of the guys that we'll bring back on here on our 40th season, and he will be that legend that we'll be talking about at that point. Until then, keep it up, man.
For sure.
You're doing awesome, dude.
Yep. Thanks, man.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me.
We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Hello, Cleveland. I am ZM Delgado, author of the Rust Belt Rock Review at ZachOLantern.com, and this is your weekend concert calendar update. First off, Friday the 30th, at the Grog Shop, it's A Very Thrashy New Year. That is the CD release party for Cleveland's own Gluttons. With support, you're going to be able to see Assault, Ovenhead, and Truck Stop. Up next, New Year's Eve at the Foundry, it's Grave, with supporting acts Quick Mystery, Faux, and Low Spot. So there it is. 2 great shows, 1 great weekend. I hope to see you out there. If I don't, I want to wish you a happy and safe New Year. And until next year, rock on, Rust Belt.
That'll be fine.